us. And I'm just going to give a, what is that called? A disclaimer at this point. You're going to see movement down at the bottom of the screen, and that is because we have our dog, my daughter's dog, Picard.
Just noticed
he's such a great listener that when I tell him to go lay down, all he wants to do is get up in our grill. So he is up here. He is loving on Emily and trying to get all of her attention right now. So when you see that traffic underneath there and hear that clippity clop, that's Picard.
Welcome, Picard.
Yeah, Picard is joining us today. He's our not special speaker, but special guest. Oh boy.
He's like, Mama's talking about me.
I know.
No, I love it. So just to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, ways that you can help us help our community.
Yes.
You can donate via our website if you feel called to. There's also our Venmo and our Cash App in our bio.
Yes.
So you're welcome to go there.
Website.
But if you don't have the ability to, just tap the screen and assist us that way. And if you feel led to, maybe give us a gift or two on here to help us turn that into some funds that we can give to our community. We greatly appreciate that. So
awesome. Thank you.
I think it's important to note even more so that with a lot of the things currently going on in the world, particularly the U.S.
Right.
We're seeing a lot more need and a lot more unexpected and immediate need from our community members.
Yes.
So that's just something to think about. Yep.
Yeah. We know that we're here to help in whatever way that we can, and a lot of times things like that can look a little different than what you first construct in your mind. You might think, oh, we're going to teach a class, which is one of the things that we do,
right?
Or we're going to create an event and we're going to go out and share, that information with the community, and that can look like all kinds of different things, from our spiritual support group to our coffee circles, our book clubs, getting together and doing meditation or yoga, creating a platform to get together and speak and being of like the meeting of the minds, like the mindful survival group that we just started up, all these beautiful things, but then other opportunities to help pop up, and not always expected opportunities where somebody actually comes to you and says, this is specific and I need help. So when that happens, we want to be available as much as we possibly can too.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, 100% of whatever we do here on the live, as far as gifts go or donations go straight to our community members. So we just appreciate anybody who's willing to support or just even sit with us.
Yes.
Because your presence is help enough as well. So
You're here.
All right, so we're going to get started. We have a podcast that we're doing today. We're our Willow Branch podcast, and you guys get to just sit with us as we talk through the energy and the subject of accountability. What's up?
We just got a hello from Russia.
Hi, Russia.
Hello. Thank you.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to another episode of Willow Branch Podcast. I am Junia Patrick, and with me is
Emily Barber.
And this is Mary Maynard.
Yes, and we are some of the board members of It Is Well Spiritual Center. We do this beautiful podcast, and we hope to share with our community some beautiful wisdoms that we have learned through our own journeys and our own paths, but also things that we research and find out advice or information that we can provide for the community to help them on their personal journeys in life and on their spiritual journey. So,
Wahoo.
woohoo!
And last week we felt called to plan to speak on accountability today. So
Yes.
It feels like the past few weeks, the subject matters of our podcast have been stepping stones.
Yeah.
They've been literal stepping stones where we've talked about boundaries and drawing the boundary lines, and then talking about having empathy, and just walking from one subject to another. But there is a string that ties them together, right? That knowledge of right living, the desire to do better as a human while we're on the earth, and how does that look for us? So each one of us might look a little different that way. So when Emily suggested that we talk about accountability today, we're like, yeah, Yeah, heck yeah, let's do it.
Well, what did we have? We had empathy, like you said, and then what was after empathy?
Boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
And then last week was
forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Yes. Just drew a blank, but there we go. We
I had
came
to ask
back.
the hard questions. I'm sorry, guys.
She always asks the
I do
unexpected questions.
I do. We're gonna sit here and also snack as we're doing our podcast. So
Yay,
just
we have some
aware.
snackies. Yeah. So let's start out with the dictionary definition of accountability and go from there. How about that?
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
in the dictionary, it talks about the acceptance of responsibility for one's own actions and implies a willingness to be transparent. I thought that was interesting.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
So when you feel like you're held accountable, what does that mean? What does that look like for you? And do you think that you should only be held accountable in certain areas of your life?
Interesting.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
No, I think accountability is one of those things that should be across the board. Like, you should be held accountable for, all of your actions, your words, your deeds, regardless of where it is in your life.
Right?
That's kind of like, it's not one of those things that I feel like we can categorize and say that this, especially if we're in people of integrity, if we're people who want to live in a state of integrity, having accountability is a huge part of that.
Right. Right. It might help you to know that I dug into the origin of the word, which, I know I do that stuff.
You do that.
So the origin was actually broken up in a couple of different areas, which I thought was interesting. The origin of the word accountability comes from Latin, accumptare, which was different, and it means to account or to calculate. And then the word accountable comes from an old French word, accountable, so one C and no U.
Okay.
And then that word means liable to be called to account. And what got my attention on that is that I remembered, you ever remember seeing the historical shows, or maybe a history that gave it a historical account of somebody being called into court and having to give account for their actions and having to stand before the magistrate? It kind of made me think of that kind of an energy.
Mm-hmm.
So being called to account. So the concept of this word has its roots in counting and reckoning, especially when you're dealing with being held accountable for financial contexts. So the reckoning, the making sure that you speak up and vouch for what you were doing is very strong there. So connected to numbers. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Em. What? Go ahead.
So, I wish I could remember now where I heard it from, but when I was doing my research, I came across this thing that was talking about balance. I almost want to say it was by Nelson Mandela, because there was another tidbit that I took from him. But they were talking about the balance. People like taking credit for the things that they feel that they do right, but you also have to take accountability for the things that you did wrong or could have done differently. So that was a really important thing to me, because I'd never thought of the two together like that. I had never thought about the positivity behind taking credit for the good things in alignment with being accountable for opposite things, because for me those were just two different subjects. But to put it like that really does, it shows the balance in life and the importance of balance, because if you are only, I know we've talked about this before, but for me, if you're only taking credit for all the good things but you deny, avoid, or dismiss your downfalls, that's ego. That's
definitely
confidence. And you have to have a healthy balance of both. I also feel like it's very humbling. It's a very humbling place to be mentally, to feel confident in the things that you did right, but also to know and accept the things that you could do better or do differently. It's a learning opportunity. It's a place to be empathetic and understand, especially for instance, say you're being accountable for something that had an effect on somebody else, that opens a place for learning and a place to be empathetic to that person. It opens a space to give you a different point of view or perspective of what comes after that maybe you didn't think about prior to whatever it was that you're being accountable for.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
I think that is a huge part of, I think, the expanded mindset of the spiritual journey, if you will. As you go on any spiritual journey, if you are open to learning the lessons, you learn that lesson of the importance of balance in that, the importance, like you said, of understanding, what we did that could have been negative, could have, harmed a situation, or could have been handled in a different way.
Right.
And honestly, there are definitely situations in my life where I look back and I'm like, okay, well, that decision that I made there was very important for my personal growth. It was very important for me to be able to move forward and to do what I am doing today.
Right.
But are there things that I actually regret? Are there things that I actually look at and I'm like, I wish I would have handled that a little bit differently.
Right.
I don't regret the actual thing of leaving behind something in order to become a better version of myself. But what I do have to walk through sometimes is that discomfort of how I chose to do that, or being in the fear state of transition and transformation. Sometimes we make certain decisions that affect people. They do. All of our decisions affect people. It's a ripple effect. Every single step we take, we talk about this all the time, especially this year for whatever reason.
Yes.
Yeah, it's highlighted this year, yes.
But every single step that we take is a ripple effect, and it definitely affects the people that are surrounding us. And it's important to have accountability for that, to take accountability for that.
True.
How did I affect the people who were involved in this situation? Could I have handled it better? Were there things that I could have done to... And what that does is it helps you learn, how do I step forward in the next one?
Right.
Moving
forward.
What's a better way for me to walk through this later?
Right.
And if we don't face it and we don't take accountability for these situations, what we come up against is a lack of transformation, really personal self-transformation. We are kind of halting that.
So then what happens after that is you get the opportunity to repeat the same thing again until you do make a different choice.
Exactly.
Or you alter your path in a way. Whether it's a definitive decision or just something that you kind of modify. It is completely up to you to make that change for the better. That's why it's okay, well, what is the lesson in this when I screw up? What's my lesson? And moving forward, what can I do better?
And sometimes accountability doesn't mean that we say sorry either.
No, accountability is not always negative. And I found, when you're seeing that highlighted in the things that, I read and researched and everything, it's not all about negativity. Sometimes there's some really positive aspects to it, which I wrote down. So, yeah.
I love that.
Kind of reminds me, so there's a little blip that I heard from Simon, I believe it's Sinek, this morning. Okay. And he doesn't directly talk about accountability, but he talks about accountability in action. So he was talking about a time that he was in line with his friend, and this place was handing out free bagels. And he was like, come on, let's go, free bagels. He was so excited about these free bagels.
Yeah.
And his friend was like, look how long that line is. There's no way I don't want to go do this. And he was like, okay, but bagels.
If they were passing out free coffee, we'd be like, oh my gosh.
The three of us would be sitting there in that line for however long we need.
Let's bring 8 hours, and that's fine. We're fine. We'll just
Is it a good cup of coffee? We're there.
Right. Do you have stuff to make a mocha?
As we sit here and drink tea.
Yes.
But so he got into that, and then he made this statement. What exactly was it? He said some people see what they want, and some people see what stands in front of them.
Oh, the obstacle.
Yes. Yeah. And he was like, I was seeing free bagels. My friend was seeing the line, but then he got into action. And that has so much to do with accountability, because that is the difference. When you take action, that is being accountable.
Right.
Or choosing, in another stance, not to take action in a situation that you know does not align with you, or does not align with protecting those that are important to you, etc. That is also being accountable.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, it is. No, I think that that's a very interesting topic to kind of touch on, because I think a lot of us can look at how important accountability is in the world, right? We're seeing a lot of examples of what accountability looks like in the positive ways. But then we are seeing a lot of examples of what accountability looks like in the negative sense.
Right.
You know, so...
Or the lack of accountability.
And that's it.
Accountability
That's it.
thereof. Yeah.
Right. People who are not willing to hold themselves accountable, or recognize that they are a part of the problem instead of the solution.
Or above the need to be held accountable.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Which is a completely different tier entirely.
That is completely coming from ego. That is completely coming from ego.
Well, it's coming from ego, but it's coming from, I mean, ego literally, I love the translation of the direct translation of edging out, or edging God out.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I've not heard that
Never heard
before.
that before.
Really? You haven't heard that
I've
before?
heard that before.
I've not heard that
Edging
like
God
that
out.
before.
Edging
No.
God out. And you see it in these people who act like they are above accountability,
Right.
like they are above integrity, and that they are edging God out of the way, and they are just acting basely out of their base desires,
Right.
out of the things that, elevate them, or that they believe that elevates them, because that's a completely different topic right there.
That they feel entitled to. They feel that they're entitled to, or that they have coming to them. Yeah, definitely. How about a couple of points with, so personal accountability, and then I also have some characteristics of accountability, and then also spiritual importance.
Okay.
So how about characteristics of accountability? So you might find something that's synonymous with being held accountable or holding yourself accountable.
Okay.
So responsibility, transparency, we mentioned that a little bit ago. Answerability, so that means the willingness to answer for your actions and vocalize that. So you answer. I thought that was interesting. Trust, consequences, and continuous improvement. Yeah. Thought that was interesting.
I mean, that, honestly, that is a powerful action of accountability right there.
Yeah, because
That continuous improvement. How many relationships have we been a part of? And I'm saying this because I know.
she already knows the answer.
But how many relationships have we been a part of as a collective, even the people who are listening right now, where you have asked for accountability in action. You've asked for somebody to show you a pattern of love.
Right.
Or show you a pattern of, they made a mistake. Awesome. Now they're like working regularly to shift or to change that into something that's more positive, to transform that.
Right.
A lot of us understand what that looks like, and we also understand what the feeling is when people don't actually have accountability in that area.
Right.
So I'm just saying, like, that's a prime example in our relationships.
Right. I love the continuous improvement aspect, that characteristic, because to me, as soon as I heard that, it made me think of I'm working on myself.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say,
So being willing to continually work on yourself.
spiritual accountability is a thing too,
Oh yeah.
which I know you talked about, but like, I think about that in regards to that promise to continue to work on yourself,
Yes.
holding yourself accountable with your actions and those patterns and stuff.
Right.
That comes into play a lot when we're walking down our spiritual path. Yeah.
Well, it reminds me, I was kind of thinking of this too before, and as you were saying that, but accountability is action. And in a sense, it's even sometimes a lack of action, but choosing not to act, in a sense, in itself is still acting. So kind of like I was saying before, back to what Simon Sinek was talking about with, I saw the bagel, my friend saw the line. But even in bigger scenarios, how do I want to say this? It's so, to me, just sitting stagnant without cause, that's not accountability. I feel like, to me, the opposite, yes,
It's just being passive.
exactly. To me, the opposite of accountability would be excuses.
Yeah.
Like, I chose not to stick up for this person, or I chose not to say anything.
Avoidance.
Yes, exactly. To me, in a sense, avoidance is an excuse, and that is lack of accountability.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to say, like, you always have to have some forward, outright, loud action to be accountable, because that's not true. Sometimes choosing not to react, in a sense, or choosing to remove yourself from a person or situation, that can be accountability.
Oh, you mean boundaries can be
Yeah.
accountability?
Right, exactly.
There it is.
And we linked it all together.
Those stepping stones. I told you.
I think it's just a matter of, are you doing forward things
Right.
that align with you, your thoughts, your needs, and those of others around you?
Yeah.
Because to me also, if you, just from a humanitarian point of view, but also when it comes to your loved ones too.
Right.
If you're doing things or not doing things that you know will hurt them, but you're excusing yourself along the way, you're not being accountable.
Right. Or
Right.
allowing yourself to be held accountable. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because that gets into a gray area as well, because with certain relationships and stuff, you're going to hurt people
Yes.
just by holding yourself accountable.
Right.
You know,
But is it an area when you know that you're calling yourself to task and you're trying to better yourself as a human, and you know that it is going to hurt that other person? It's not an area of where that's a priority or you're choosing to hurt someone else. It's an area where you're choosing to say that I have to choose myself
Right,
in this aspect because I need to work on me.
and that's the
first.
difference.
I was just
There's
about
the
to say.
difference. There's the fine line. Because, yeah, you're right. There's going to be a fine line in a lot of choices that we make in life. But a lot of times when we choose other people over ourselves and we don't do the work that we know we need to do to heal,
Right.
to mend, to move forward, then we're actually doing not only ourselves a disservice, but anyone else in our life.
And we don't realize, once again, that ripple effect and how it really works.
It
all the
really
time.
is.
So it's important for us to reflect on our personal integrity. What's our integrity in the situation?
Right.
That's another subject.
Oh boy.
Integrity. But
No.
accountability and integrity go hand in hand, don't they? Like I said.
Absolutely.
Yes, it does. And let me read you the spiritual importance
Yes,
of that,
go for
because
it.
it is in there. I just saw it, see. Spiritual importance of holding yourself accountable or being held accountable. It lies in its ability to foster growth, humility, and integrity among spiritual community. It encourages individuals to reflect on their actions, motivations, and leading them to a deeper relationship with God, divine source, universe, and a stronger community.
Yeah.
So there's that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Being willing to be held accountable in life and holding myself accountable creates a beautiful ripple effect that affects the community around me. And I just love that. I love that. So it's very important. Also, some other things to think about. What are the positives about holding yourself accountable? If you're talking about personal accountability, we're talking about the integrity and everything when we were talking about the importance of it from a spiritual standpoint. But other positives, if you will, it helps you to lead by example. It helps keep you consistent with your values. I thought that was cool because we don't think about it that way sometimes, but it's like, if you start to, and we could use something that a lot of people deal with just as an example. So say I'm on a diet.
Yeah.
And I ask you guys, hold me accountable, and then we go out or whatever, and I'm getting like chocolate cake or whatever, but it's like every single day this week, you guys are going to be like, is that a part of your diet?
Very loving.
Is that a new diet? Just just a very, very lightweight example of bringing me back into the path, you know,
Right.
just keeping me to my values, keeping me to what is the ultimate goal that I'm trying to reach, you know.
And it's interesting too, because that can be twisted as well. And I know we
Truth.
look at the dark and the light of everything,
Truth,
right? That's
right.
a part of all of this.
As we should.
But the dark of that would almost be you're trying to transition into a new phase of yourself, but somebody feels like they are holding you accountable to the old version of you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you do have that. I've felt that in family. I felt that in community.
Yeah.
Where, you know, somebody thinks that they have the best interest for you in their mind.
They're like, oh, you never used to be this way.
I can't tell you how much I've heard that,
Oh my
especially in the
gosh.
last 4 or 5 years.
And I just want to look at them and say, thank you.
I literally have. I've had people be on such a rampage, like, you're not the same person you were, you've changed. And I'm like, I hope so.
Right.
Like,
I have said that. I have said that.
why would I want to be 32 years old, staying stagnant in the same place that I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago? But I'm just, that would be living the same life over and over and over. Do you not listen? I don't have time to be bored. I don't have time to be boring. I don't have time for my mind to not be mentally stimulated. I don't have time to not grow.
Right.
Like, my God, the amount of patience. It actually kind of brings me back to, so like, it's funny because I'm in a place lately that I've never been. I've always been the person, I don't know, maybe in a way this is accountability too, but for myself, I have found a new way to like hold myself accountable, because I used to be the person that always, and I think I said this last time when we were talking about empathy or boundaries, but I always felt the need to explain everything.
Yeah.
And my goal in explaining everything was to try to get whoever I was talking to understand where I was.
Exactly, where you're coming from.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
My pain, my anger, my feelings, my happiness, like all of that.
I feel you. I've been there.
And now I'm just in a place where it's like, there's so many things I hold to myself, and not in a bad way,
Right.
but just, I have learned that I don't need to give everybody every part of me.
Right.
Even if somebody
Right.
understands, does not mean that they are engaged or, I want to say concerned, but that's not necessarily the word I'm looking for. But just because somebody literally understands where you're coming from
Doesn't mean that they're fully present.
Right,
Right.
exactly. And I don't.
Or that they're going to agree.
Right. So I have learned to like really, not necessarily hold back what I have to say, but be very picky about what I feel needs to be said. I don't need to express it all. I don't need to explain it all. I just need to say, this is my part, this is where I stand, or this is my point of view, and that's just kind of it.
True.
Well, because that takes so much energy.
I was just going to say that.
Doesn't it? Like,
You're
we're going to talk
expelling
about that a
all
lot,
that
but-
energy out on those people, and they're not, no matter how much or how in depth you go into explaining yourself to them, or what you're trying to do, or what your vision is, or what your goal is, they're not going to always understand. And having the sometimes having that tuning into the wisdom of keeping that balance of knowing this person here is going to understand, this person here not so much, this person here I have expelled so much energy and they just shut down, or they shut off, or they're not even open to begin with. And it's like, why am I expelling all my energy, giving that to that person when they're not open to my life in the first place?
Right.
See, it's
I've been
interesting.
I've had people in my life where they just take, and I spent decades giving, and now I'm in the place where I'm learning to balance that out, and it's like, not everybody needs all of my energy, and I'm going to conserve my energy and use a little bit of wisdom to balance out where it's okay to share that.
Right.
Well, our words are
Affirmations.
we don't realize how, yes, they're affirmations. But our words have so much power. We talk
Yes.
about that a lot too.
Very
and a lot
much.
of the things that we share and that we teach and all that jazz. but our words have a lot of power. So when we are focusing our words in a specific area and we're trying to share that with other people, we don't realize how much power we're giving that.
True.
If that power is not reciprocated, if it's not something that we're receiving back, you know, the insight or the receptibility, I guess, of it, we are draining ourselves very slowly. And I've noticed that, just to share a little bit here,
please.
I've noticed that when I talk about the creation of this, that there are certain people that I have been in the space with, and I'm like, oh, of course they'll get this. You know, they have a similar heart as me, or they have a similar mindset as me, you know, spiritually or whatever. And I'll sit there and I'll start to talk about what we're doing and what the vision is, and you know what we're hoping to build and all of these things. And I have noticed that there are a lot of people, not all people, but there are a lot of people who don't know what to do with that.
No.
And
you're like,
I think it's so out of the norm. It's so out of the norm, so it's just, it's so foreign.
But there are some of those gorgeous little gems out there who you walk up to and you say 5 words about what you're doing and they're like, oh my God. Oh my God. Thank God you're doing that. We need you. Please keep doing that. Like, and they immediately get it.
Thank goodness.
There's no fight to explain myself or to explain what we do. And I am very grateful for those people.
I am
they know who they are.
Yes. You know who you are.
Yes. I love you. Love them very much, whether they are actively a part of the community that we have been creating or whether they are just people who watch. I am so grateful for them. But anywho, I find that very interesting because I have literally felt that energetic exchange and how I give. Oh, I'm pouring my heart, or I'm pouring my passion, I'm pouring my soul out into this, and then you got nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no good job. There's no.
Oh, that's awesome.
How can I help you? Yeah. You know, or any kind of support really in return. You know, so.
Yeah. This doesn't directly have to do with accountability, but in a sense it could be me holding myself accountable too. But just like that person we were talking about earlier, I've only ever interacted with this person twice in my entire life. And it was a person that is a transgender member of our community.
Yes.
And I met them for the first time at Pride and then ran into them at a bank months later, and just some type of connection. You could tell, like, from the second we started talking, we were on the same page. And when I ran into them at the bank, I don't even think they realized who I was. But just saying hi and I love your earrings, like that glow, that light up. And they were so, when I was talking to them at Pride, so invested in everything that we were doing and interested and just spreading that love and awareness. And for me, a part of like holding myself accountable in those situations is just not being afraid to interact with anyone. Like and it has nothing to do with the way that they live their life. I'm that way very much with everybody. I have always, my whole life, kind of been the wallflower that was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But like,
wallflower.
I know. Who would know? Who would guess? Listen, this has just happened in the last couple years, okay, guys?
This has got to be the first year I never thought you weren't telling the truth.
But that's just it. I mean, just like you said, you immediately click with people. It's that connection. I immediately clicked with you guys. I immediately had that connection. It's just, it's a soul tie. You can feel that with somebody. Yes. So the second that I could feel we were on the same page in the same areas in life, that I could be safe with you guys, this is what you get.
I'm so down. Let's do more of that.
All right, sounds good to me.
But what's beautiful, you just explained the concept of being seen.
Yeah, you sure did.
We just explained that in our little like back and forth here. The importance of being seen.
We did just explain that, because even when, like, you were talking about your passion and you're sharing it with somebody and you're met with crickets, that person didn't see you.
Right.
And that's going to happen, unfortunately. It's going to happen in life. If you have a passion out there and you want to share it with somebody and you share it, and then you feel like it's fallen on deaf ears or somebody didn't hear you, you're not feeling like you've been seen.
Yeah.
You know, so
and then we must hold ourselves accountable in the sense of when you have been in those interactions with people who are like, oh my gosh, here's my passion, here's my joy.
Right.
This is, you know, how many of us have been guilty of not being present for them?
Yeah, I could go on forever.
Ouch.
Yeah.
No, like, so that is one thing, honestly.
Holding ourselves accountable, right?
That's one thing I have struggled with personally.
Did you get off my toes, please?
Sorry.
Well, like, you know, for
that's
instance, me and Kurt have grown so far apart. There's been a lot of things that have then continued to push us further apart.
Right.
And one thing that we both complained about for years was in that drifting apart, both of us feeling like we just weren't seen anymore. We don't have any common interest anymore. We don't have a lot of common ground. I have grown one way. He has grown other ways, and or I don't want to say he's stagnant, but we're just not on the same level or in the same places right now.
Right.
But just trying to tap in more, because that is one thing. I know that I zone out because I hate to say, he talks about things that I don't care about. And I'm just like, I've heard this 900,000 times. My brain is numb.
Oh, you're the one that's looking down at your phone saying, No, because and that's the hard part for me, because it's not just with him. I do this with other people. Yes, like you will be mid-sentence and I am actively trying to be like, okay, we gotta hold on, I gotta listen, I'm trying to comprehend, and then next thing I know, I'm over here thinking about butterflies and rainbows, or where I'm gonna plant my grapevine. Yeah.
Where am I gonna plant my grapevine next week? Like, those are the things that come in, and I get stuck in. And like, I've even done it. She won't care if I say it, I don't think, but I'll never forget. This has been months ago. Ashley and Kurt were having a conversation, and it was about something that I was interested in, and I knew as they were having that conversation exactly what they were talking about because I was interested in it. Somebody said something that got my mind going a different direction. 5 minutes later, I come back, and I'm like, are you guys talking about da-da-da-da? And she's like, no. We've been talking about XYZ, and I'm like, oh, duh, I should know that because I was in this conversation before I went off to Never Never Land. Like, so there are certain things that it's like, I feel like aren't directly maybe in our control, but like it's the point of trying.
Mm-hmm. It's that concept of when you notice that, oh, I went off to Never Never Land with this.
Yes.
Like, I went off to Never Never Land, how can I redirect my thoughts next time? Like, how can I better adjust this?
Right.
Like we talked about the adjusting earlier.
Making an adjustment.
You know, later on when it comes back around, because it will. It will come back around.
Yeah.
Yes.
Couple more of the personal accountability pluses.
Go for it.
And as we're talking through this, it helps you to have a support system. We talked about that a minute ago. So creating that support system where somebody supports you in holding you accountable or saying, calling you to task, reminding you.
Right.
It helps you to learn from your mistakes. We talked about that. It helps you to make tough decisions. That's not always fun, but that's also a good one too. It stops you from getting egotistical. Thought that was interesting.
That is, well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit ago, about the whole edging God out kind of concept.
Yes, falling into ego. Oh, goody.
Well, like I was saying too, like that excuse, if you're accountable, you are evaluating, processing, and owning up for what it is. So it does take out the ego, because if you're making, in a sense, if you're making excuses or avoiding or dismissing, deflecting, that is saying I am above those things that I did or didn't do.
Right.
That is ego, not confidence.
Correct. Correct.
Ego, not confidence. I like that.
Well, because that's one of them. It says it boosts your self-confidence. That's another one
Speaking
too.
of which.
Yeah.
And it keeps you focused on your goals. Tapping into ego or falling into that mindset is taking you out of the present moment of awareness. So being held accountable, holding yourself accountable for things in your life, that makes you create an awareness for yourself. It keeps you in the present moment saying, okay, what are my actions? And is this in alignment with the highest and best version of myself that I want to be?
Can you imagine? Can we just all sit here for just a moment as a collective and imagine what our world would be like if we had more people that held themselves accountable? Can we just like
There would be so much less hurt and pain. I feel like there'd be so much more happiness and joy.
pain will be there.
It will always be there.
Yeah,
it will always be. And somebody can be accountable, and like you said earlier, it can still hurt somebody just because the two don't align, or the end outcome that somebody wants or thinks should be just isn't right for one another,
right?
Or the situation. Like you said, there will always be pain. But I think it just, with accountability, there'd still just be so much less, because when you're accountable, I think that there's some level of understanding what you're doing, obviously thinking through and doing things in a healthier way, in a, what's the word I'm looking for, I want to say empathetic, but that's not necessarily it, but
Well, describe what you're thinking.
You're taking the big picture into account. You're not just being selfish. People can make selfish choices, and in a sense, you can still make a choice that is best for yourself without being selfish if you're being accountable.
Consideration.
So
You're
more
considering
exactly.
yourself as well as
Impartial.
everyone else.
Right.
More of an impartial viewpoint rather than something that is subjective,
Yeah.
right? Objective rather than subjective.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think being considerate of others as well as yourself is very important.
Well, and I think that is absolutely necessary in order for us to have a thriving community, just in general, in any community, the smaller communities, the larger communities.
Right.
We need that accountability to be present there.
Here, here.
So,
Checks and balances, right?
right, real ones.
Real checks and balances.
Real checks and balances.
that are there.
Yes, yeah. That aren't just based off of financial checks and balances here, that we're talking about actual character checks and balances. So, I don't know, I have a really hard time, and I'm going to try not to get too political or anything like that, because that's not what we're about here, but we definitely are about people.
Yeah. Yes.
We are definitely
Absolutely.
about humanity. And we will always, always be for the pillars of love and compassion. Watch yourself.
Ooh. Peacemakers. Yes.
Yes.
We are definitely about people, but we're not about telling them to shut up and sit down or go away or getting rid of or discriminating or distinguishing or separating or alienating. None of that is within the passion that we have for being with and helping the community, helping people, helping others. It's all about love and compassion and acceptance. In whatever way that needs to look for somebody else. We do it to our highest and best, and we do all things in love.
But my point that I want to make here is the fact that it's so important that we have leaders that we hold accountable.
Right.
In the sense of characteristics, in the sense of values, in the sense of just their common decency. And I know that there's a lot of us out there who may believe that that what matters is their policy. What matters is the things that they're trying to make happen for the dollar. What matters is those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, it's us holding our leadership accountable. Any leadership, whether that be church leadership, whether that be organization leadership, whether that be your community group leadership, whether that be your governmental leadership. We have to hold them accountable for their actions, their choices, their deeds.
And wouldn't you think that the more responsibility that a person has, the higher up you go, the more responsibility that that person has fall upon them, the more important that would be, the more important things like integrity and humility and accountability should be for that person, because they, of all people, no matter where you go, they're seen. We know who that person is. They are very identifiable. We know who that person is. So I would think more so than anyone else, the higher up the food chain you are, the more you should be transparent and held accountable.
And I believe that in any kind of leadership, especially like in family too. If there's somebody who considers themselves ahead of their family, you best believe that I'm going to hold you accountable for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Your position, your words, are you being loving, truly?
Are you living by example? If you're telling your kids one thing, are you living that?
Right.
Are you showing that this is what it looks like?
Right, and I'm talking for my own personal family.
I got you. But when you say
not
family,
saying other
everybody's
people's
got
family, but
family.
you know, like
No matter how that looks, everybody's family looks different, but everybody has a family.
right.
Well, it's just like I said in one of our last podcasts, if we want to talk directly about family, but I mean, it translates into everything.
Right.
You don't get a free pass just because you're biologically related to me.
Right.
You don't get a free pass just because we went to school together. You don't get a free pass because we grew up best friends, but we grew up and we grew apart. We have different...
You don't get a free pass for being a millionaire or billionaire. Like,
No.
And you don't get a free pass because you're not female.
that's exactly it.
Hmm.
Exactly
It
it.
makes me think of this too, because we're talking about, well, we are talking about accountability, but in the past recent, we've talked about, I lost it. Yep, my brain's done braining.
You're alright.
It's that air
She went off
sign.
to Wonderland. No, you're
Where was
fine. Keep
I?
talking.
No, like it's gonna drive me crazy.
It floated
so-
away on
oh,
the cloud. It's
family.
okay. Go.
my own personal TikTok. Woohoo! Where I went off about, I'm gonna get real blunt. Anywho, my family member who I love dearly is one of the most important people to me. But God, can we be accountable for doing our own freaking research? Like shit. I see so many people just like, oh, well, so-and-so said this, so it must be true. Listen, and I'm going to use this as an example, but this is just one more example of all the fuckery that's going on in our world.
Right.
Family member told me
That's
that
her
because
name, by the way, on TikTok.
it's fun in the fuckery, just for anybody that wants to go find it. But it's this person was talking directly about, we'll get a little political, but it's just for an example, and this is holding yourself accountable to doing your own research, knowing what's going on in your world, and your understanding of the things that are affecting you directly.
Right.
I love this person dearly. They're dumbass. They are. There's no simpler way to say it. They wanted to tell me about toilet paper, automatically assumed that we must be, getting the trees from here that we make our toilet paper from. No. Canada has a wide abundance of trees that we do not have here. The proper type of trees that we do not have here.
Right.
And I didn't want to put my foot in my mouth, so I held back and I was like, listen, I'm going to go do some research. And I did.
Yeah.
And all those trees that we make all this toilet paper from come from Canada. And then they ship it here. We make toilet paper for ourselves and then we ship some of it back to them.
Which, by the way, just mild disclaimer on our podcast, we love Canada. We think that you guys are amazing.
Yes.
And we appreciate you putting up with all the
Fuckery?
fun and the fuckery that's going on right now.
I don't know if I'd call it fun.
So my family member told me this, and I was like, before I said anything, I was like, I'm gonna go do because I told her, I was like, I'm pretty sure we get that from there, but let me go double check. And I did, because that's what I do.
Because you research everything.
I want to be accountable for the bullshit that I put out
Learn for
there.
yourself.
I don't want to just spread ignorance.
When in doubt, fish it out.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So I went, I checked, I found the resources, I cross-checked everything to make sure I wasn't missing anything, sent that to this family member. They, I doubt, watched or consumed much of any of it, because then later, the next day, well, they said they checked into it the next day, and then days later we got together. And they were like, I didn't even really get to watch that much, da 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 da. But the fact that they didn't reiterate anything back to me, that they understood what I was talking about, or that they were surprised, or that they had a better understanding, like, you immediately saw what you wanted to see and shut it down because you were bored with it. So you still have no understanding of what the fuck is going on or happening.
That's accountability in the sense of we need to be accountable for our own ignorance.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
We need to be accountable for the things that we don't know.
And the shit that we spread.
And the stuff that comes out of
Why are you
our
spreading
mouth.
information if
Absolutely.
you didn't learn it yourself?
Exactly.
All I'm saying is, if nothing else, you benefited from doing your own research and learning for yourself what the answer was. So that right there was really cool.
Yeah.
You know, that you went out and you said, okay, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna get the answer myself. And sometimes I get overwhelmed in today's goings on, not knowing whose voice is actually telling the truth. How do you know who's actually telling the truth?
Right.
So the best way to do that is to dive in and do your own research and not listen to other voices.
Yeah.
Just because the loudest voice isn't always the most accurate.
One of my favorite classes that I had in college was a course that taught us how to basically how to do research, how to actually go through and check your sources. Like not just citing your sources, but check your sources. Where are your sources coming from? What's the organization behind the source that you're getting your information from?
Right.
So are you getting it purely from an unbiased source? And if there is a bias, what kind of bias is present? And that is the research that people don't do. They just go off the cuff with what they think they know is true. And they don't actually dig in enough to identify the truth behind it all. And I feel like it's harder and harder to do that because there are so many layers and levels and all that jazz.
Right.
You know, one of the things that I dug into was a specific charity and information from that charity. I'm gonna check that really quick.
Yeah.
But that
has a very lovely picture that just popped up. I'm not sure what that is though.
It does. Let's take a look.
Well, I'm still watching you online.
I'm still watching too. So.
Okay, guys, hold on one second. I don't know why it wants us to do that. Well, thank you.
I'm gonna go get tea.
Go get tea.
It just seems like a perfect time.
Okay. A little backdrop here. So
I'm still listening.
it moved. Technical difficulties.
Junia, behind you. Behind you.
I'm coming.
You see what had happened was.
What happened is Emily got up to get tea.
How dare you, Emily?
Oh my goodness.
What are we gonna do with her?
I don't know. Hold her accountable.
I love you guys.
I just really hope it's like topple forward when we get there.
I know. Move her chair and see if it's not coming. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Wow. Okay, are we good? Are we good?
We're good.
Technical difficulties. And we're back. Yeah, go ahead.
And another favorite.
Sorry. Oh, we're fun. We never know what we're gonna get into, y'all.
I love it so much.
No, one of the things I wanted to say earlier is that this is a very authentic and very real group of individuals that we have going on here. So that means
real?
that what?
We're not real?
I said we are real.
Yeah.
Are we
Hearing aid and all.
I'm joking. Hi, Picard. Hi, buddy.
Oh boy, here we go.
So, my point in bringing that up is you're going to hear us cuss, you're going to hear us make mistakes, you're going to hear us be absolutely and 100% transparent with you as we move into every conversation that we have. And you know, we are a part of this organization that's about love and light and all that jazz, but there's always a balance, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's always a balance. So you're going to see that balance reflected in us because we are imperfect beings, and that is exactly how we are meant to be.
We're extremely passionate.
Very, very. And I'm pretty sure and I'm not pretty sure, I know for a fact, every person at this table is an advocate. And we are becoming louder and louder advocates.
Yeah.
But we are really for the underdog. We are really for the people who are in need and supporting our communities as much as we possibly can. That's our heart. So that's why we do what we do every day. And we do this every day in our own personal ways, and I absolutely love how we kind of expand out in the world. So, anything else you guys want to talk about with accountability? Did you have anything else over there?
I have a couple quotes.
Oh, should do it.
Em, why don't you share the quote from that we had in
common?
In common.
That was so funny.
Yes, I love it.
Hold on, let me find it in here. Oh, and then I have another one from Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes too that I really wanted to talk about.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was his name again, Mary?
Moliere.
Moliere. Okay. He was a famous French writer from the... No, he was not the one from the 18th century. Sorry, that's Dr. Oliver. Anywho, Moliere is a famous French writer, though, and poet. It says, "It is not what we do, but also what we do not do, for which we are accountable." Oof. And I think that is,
We talked about that.
it's very clear
Yeah.
that you're accountable for even the things that you don't do, decisions you do or don't make. But just the way he said it had a whole nother impact on me of people not realizing that the things that you choose not to do,
Inaction.
yes, are that. And it's and not to say that inaction is always a negative. It depends on the situation. Did you
I was just gonna
choose?
say that,
Yeah, did you choose not to do something because you were avoiding it
Because
in
you
a
didn't
situation
want
that
to.
isn't it? Right, exactly. Well, and that's just it. Like, there's two different sides to that. If you chose to do nothing because you wanted to be avoidant or you didn't want to be accountable,
Right.
that's a negative aspect. If you chose to do nothing because it didn't align with you, or you chose to do nothing because you knew that it would be a negative impact on you or somebody you care about, your community,
Right.
that is a positive thing.
That's a totally different type of inaction. You're
Right.
right.
I think about this
This is
as
innocence in action.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about this in a real world example with myself is there are times where I stop myself from doing certain things that maybe I know need to be done, or are on that list of to-dos that I have.
Right.
Because in order for me to hold myself accountable with other parts of my life, I have to basically watch where I'm spending my energy.
Yeah.
And sometimes that looks like the things on my to-do list don't get accomplished fully in the day or the span that I'm hoping to accomplish them. Sometimes it means that I choose other things over that thing that I feel like I have to accomplish.
Right.
And in that way, I'm holding myself accountable in a positive way with my inaction.
And that when you just explained it the way you just did, I heard self-care.
Yeah.
So those types of holding yourself accountability, that's a part of that balancing act, right? Learning when self-care is important, learning when to say no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we just went back to another podcast. drawing the boundaries, making choices, I mean, I'm just saying, it's a daily journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it really is.
Wholly and truly is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah.
What was the other one that you had?
So it is actually a real world thing that happened. So back in the 18th century, there was a lot. Happened a lot over in Europe, but then it carried over here into the U.S. as people were migrating this way. Pioneers were here, etc.
Right.
There was a thing called the Black Death of childbirth.
Yes.
And this was during the Renaissance. We had, that's when like science really started to become a thing. And you had all these scientists and researchers that sat back and were trying to figure out why at one point it got up to 70%. 70% of women were passing away after childbirth. And it was Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes who realized that majority of this was because these scientists were I can't think of the word. They were inspecting.
Experimenting?
No. Oh my gosh, my brain's not brain.
What were they
They
doing?
were literally inspecting.
Evaluating.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a whole nother word for it, scientific term that better. But so after these women would pass, they were looking through the body and all that, trying to figure out what happened.
Autopsy and that kind of stuff.
Yes. And Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes realized that when they were, he wouldn't say inspecting and investigating, that's literally what they were doing. But
That's okay.
regardless,
We know what you're saying. We know.
these bodies,
good.
they were
It's
doing,
all good.
yeah,
Sorry.
most of the time they were doing these at night and or first thing in the morning.
Dissection?
And no,
No?
I mean, that was a part of it, but I can't think of the overall word.
All right, keep going. Let's go. Sorry.
So no,
Stuck in a word.
they would do this. That they were doing these to these women's bodies to research what it was that was causing these women to die. Again, it got up to
Okay.
70% of women were
Wow.
passing away after childbirth.
Yeah.
Wow.
He realized they weren't washing their hands before they went and delivered the next babies. So they would do this at night, go to bed, get up in the morning, do this again with these
They were
bodies.
passing it on.
They were. And
There's so many medical
yes.
history and stuff where they did not wash their hands.
Yeah.
And yes.
Well, and then these doctors kept trying to tell him, no, you're crazy, that's not the problem, that's not. This went on for 30 years after he realized this. 30 years. And it just continued. And then finally people got accountable and, we're like, oh, well, let's just give this a go. Dropped.
That is
Immediately dropped.
That's a sad state of
Yes.
being held accountable. Go
Yes.
wash your hands. Go
How
wash
hard
your
is that?
hands. How
Right,
hard is
it's
that?
not hard.
Go out, pump the pump a couple times. Put your hands underneath there.
Right.
Problem solved.
And you could have saved so many lives.
How selfish
many
is that?
Yeah.
That is such a prime example of what is wrong with people when we are experiencing like scientific evolution
Yes.
or even spiritual evolution. We see that in all of these different aspects of life where people are like so against. Well, that
Change.
can't be real because it's always been this way.
Change.
It's always been this way. There's no way that it could be this thing over here. And it's like, no.
But it could.
Everything changes. Once you recognize and you
Always.
realize that everything shifts and changes, like even your perspective.
Well, and then hearing that, that was the 18th century.
Right.
This is back during the Renaissance.
Right.
But then that brings me forward to today with people trying to get rid of, got rid of Roe versus Wade.
Right.
And why aren't people being held accountable for that? Because people want to, and I don't mean to get political, but when you sit back and you think about it, how many women have died already in the last 4 to 5 years because doctors are so afraid, and I completely understand their stance and not putting them down, but they are so afraid to go to prison, to lose their families, to lose their license, to help save women's lives because a mom who it is medically necessary, a pregnancy that is not viable or is life-threatening, they are told they are not allowed to do anything. And these women are dying. Like, this is happening right now.
I don't care what you say. Nothing is black and white in this world.
No.
Nothing
Not
is
at
black
all.
and
That's
white.
why we have
Nothing.
different, or we have had different things in place to be able to support the gray area.
Yeah.
To be able, because I used to believe in black and white.
Yes, same
I
here.
I
Same here.
genuinely did.
Same
That's
here.
all I saw.
Yeah.
And in the past several years, that has transitioned significantly
Yes.
to the point where I recognize that it is an entire kaleidoscope of colors.
True.
Yeah.
And that we can't judge one color based off of the other, Like every situation, every story is different.
Yeah.
Every person is different.
Even if all the factors, even if 99 out of 100 variables,
Yeah, no deal.
even if 99 out of 100 variables were the same and one variable was different, I love you. Those two scenarios are not going to be the same.
No.
You change one variable, like the person is different, or the color of their skin is different, or the where they live is different, or their age, or any factor. You change one variable and that scenario is going to be different. So it is not possible to paint something black and white and expect everything every single time to adhere to that. It's not possible.
No, it's not.
We're not meant to live in that kind of a world.
No.
If look around you, if we have been told time and time again to watch Mother Nature, for example, and watch and use her as a lesson to learn from her. There is no black and white in Mother Nature.
No.
Things change, seasons change, temperatures change, the weather
Plants
changes.
and animals evolve.
Plants and animals change.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Should be evolving.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So if you use nothing else but the planet that we set our feet on, that we live on day in and day out, that is a huge example right there that black and white does not exist in this world.
Right. It definitely doesn't.
No.
It definitely doesn't. But it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart for stories like that because it's so flipping true. And then who holds themselves accountable in those situations?
Yeah.
Who is the accountable party?
Who is
And who will stand up and say that this is not how it's supposed to be?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel really, really called to just for a second, if we could, like, maybe give those mothers and sisters and daughters just kind of a moment of silence. It just hit my heart really hard.
We are taking a moment of silence right now, just to clarify, to send love and healing energy out to those mothers and those sisters and those daughters
And their families.
and their families, their loved ones who have experienced loss in this way.
Sorry, got really emotional here.
Okay.
No, it just,
We're with you, sister.
it hits hard. It hits hard when it's those situations, and we're even experiencing them in different ways right now with, our LGBTQ communities, our immigrant communities, or not even immigrant necessarily, but our minorities in general. I've heard so many stories recently that have broken my heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a part of holding ourselves accountable here
Right.
comes back to how we use the platforms that we have too.
Right.
So those of us who have social media platforms or who are standing up and, trying to be a voice in the world in whatever format it may be in, just know that you must hold yourself accountable to the things that you say
Right.
and to the actions that you take. And whether that's you hold yourself accountable, or you have your community that holds you accountable, or whether that is you have a higher power that will hold you accountable, there will always be someone there who's watching you. And I really hope that a lot of us use our spaces for love
Yes.
and compassion and for understanding and to provide resources that will help instead of hinder. So.
There's plenty of hate being shed around all over the world right now. That I keep hearing like the loud voice, kind of a thing. There's plenty of that. We don't need any more of that. What is that statistic that says it takes like 40 positive words to cancel out one negative?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that is the case here, but I think that when we put love out into the world, that is something that is a beautiful positive cycle that we can create, not only for ourselves but for those around us and for the community and for the world. That ripple effect. Let it begin with you. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me. It was an old song that I used to sing all the time when I was in choir in school, and it's funny because I heard it the other day just come up in my head, and it just laid heavy on my heart, and I just began to cry because the words are so applicable to today's scenario, and let's spread more love. So if it's just one small act, and sometimes we think we don't make a big difference, your one small act of kindness or compassion or love towards someone else, like holding the door for somebody and telling them that their earrings are beautiful, things like that, If that does nothing else but then to inspire that next person to then turn and hold the door open for somebody else and speak in kindness and love, that's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And you are not always going to see that ripple effect. Just know and believe that it's there.
Because
So
it is.
it is there. It is there. Just know that your one small act of love makes a difference.
I was listening last night to one of my absolute favorite tarot readers in the entire universe. And I call him a tarot reader, but he's a channel. He's an absolute beautiful soul, Calvin. And Calvin's on here on TikTok normally, and if you ever get a chance to look him up, I totally encourage you to do so. But this beautiful soul was bringing up what you just said about how we don't really realize how much our ripple effect affects other people, and how the small little positive things that we said to each other, that we say to each other, how they really truly sit with somebody. And he started crying on his live last night when he was talking about it, because he's like, that one time that you stopped in the middle of the grocery store and you gave presence and space for that. See, I want to cry. Presence and space for that person that needed that. That person still carries it. They still carry it with them, and they still hold it in their heart. So that whole old concept, and I call it an old concept because it's very old world thinking, of that we can't affect change, that we can't create, a better tomorrow for our communities or for our neighbors. It's completely false. It's completely false.
I was thinking about, and I'll share it briefly again just because it's the simplest thing that made me so happy, and I see myself doing these things all the time, and I will say my life is so much happier and simpler the last years that I've been doing this. It's always been a small part of me, but I've lit it up a lot more the last years. But the guy at Kroger's a couple weeks ago, who I was pulling in, there were 2 spots open. I was not in a rush. Even if I was, it wouldn't matter, but you could see the stress on his face as he was walking the cart back to the cart caddy, because the 2 spots that were open that I was trying to pull into were between where he parked and the cart caddy. And you could just tell, like, I don't know what was going through his mind. I know what would have been going through my mind in that situation. A lot of the time it would have been, oh crap, they're trying to pull in, I gotta hurry up, I gotta rush, I'm in their way, they're gonna get mad, whatever.
Right.
I didn't say a word to this man. All I did was smile at him. I smiled at him. And he immediately slowed down. He smiled back. And you could just see how he went from tense and anxious, almost like that feeling of like you're waiting for the other foot to drop, or you're waiting for something to happen. He went from that to just, he wasn't really skipping, but like, to me, I felt like he was just, he was cruising. He was relaxed. He was like, oh, and he smiled back at me, and then we both just carried that smile until we couldn't see each other anymore. And I carried that smile all the way through the grocery store.
I love that.
It made my whole day. And I am lucky enough that I have instances like that regularly.
But you create them.
I do.
You
I
see the opportunity.
I literally do.
My eyes are open. I have the awareness. So then you take the opportunity to be like, I'm going to step right into this and create a better day for myself and for this person.
Exactly. So not only did you carry that smile with you through the store, he carried his smile with him throughout his day.
Can I tell you that is one of the most beautiful things to sit back and witness and observe? Like, have you ever just noticed other people just, like strangers, just passing each other and loving on each other for a brief moment, whether that's a smile, whether that's oh, you need a couple more dollars to cover your bill? Sure, let me hand that to you, or like, whatever the case may be. For me, I am so joyful when I get to sit back and watch other people be loving to others.
Yes, and we all always have those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite people on the planet, and she knows who she is, one of my favorite people on this planet. I went out with her one time. I drove or rode with her to her doctor's appointment and was just there because she has social anxiety, and she has anxiety in those kinds of environments. So I went with her to just kind of be her support for the day. Yeah. Usually she would have like her support animal with her, but she wasn't able to that day, so I went with her. And anyway, so So we went to this appointment together, and I just watched her. Every single person that she talked to, every single situation she interacted with. And I'm speaking about somebody who is a very anxious person. She's very loving, but she's very anxious. She's extremely spiritual. And she's constantly like working on herself and overcoming so many things. I just could not say more beautiful things about this woman. But anywho, she was talking to everybody as if they were the most important person she met that day. And we went up to a drive-through window at one point, and I got some French fries, and she got, I can't remember, she got like a burger and whatever else. And the lady at the window was just frowning, just so like angry at the world at first. And then my friend turns to her and just says like the most simple, loving thing about the way that she looked, about who she was, called her sweetheart. Like, it was just so genuine too. Like, she's not a false person. She's a very real lady. So every time that she was opening her mouth like that, it was like just love pouring out from her. And I watched people's whole demeanor change. Their whole demeanor. And I'm just sitting there smiling and giddy in the passenger seat, just enjoying every minute of that joy.
So an example.
Yeah.
And that's just it. Talking about spreading it. It's just the little things, and you take your little spark and you pass it to the next person, and that spark just keeps going.
I keep bumping into you. I'm sorry.
It's like, oh, she's there. Oh, I do too.
No. So, yeah, we have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We need to hold each other accountable.
Yes.
And we need to not just accountable in the negative ways, but also like, I feel like accountability can be uplifting too.
Yes.
I was just thinking that. What about being accountable in positive ways? Because I think about this too a lot. I've been around a lot of people, and I used to be one of those people that we've talked about being in the car a million times getting pissed because somebody in front of you is going slow.
All right, yeah.
And it took a mentally realizing and holding myself accountable. And like, don't get me wrong, there's still times I get pissed. And I will like cuss people in my car to myself. Or I'll just get in and
But then all love and light. What the hell, Em? What are we doing here? No,
but then I will, like, it's funny, and Kurt looks at me like I'm crazy, Jonathan looks at me, and my mother looks at me like I'm crazy. But I will recognize it, and I will literally talk to her. I'm like, Emily, that wasn't nice. You need to not do that. But then gosh, I can't remember who said this, but what changed my perspective, because there were times that I knew I was doing that. I knew I was being negative, but I never thought of it outside of the box enough to really know or understand how to change it. And I can't remember who it was that said it, but years ago, somebody had said something to the effect of all of those things that you create that you're telling yourself are stories you're telling yourself.
Exactly.
That's just it. So tell yourself a different story.
Change the story.
Yes, instead of telling yourself that this person's being an asshole and cutting you off, or that this person's lazy and doing 10 miles under the speed limit, instead tell yourself, this is an elderly person who hasn't drove often the last X amount of years, and they have a doctor's appointment they need to go to, and they need the patience.
Yes.
Or tell yourself, this person's really stressed, they must have a family member in the hospital that they're rushing to get to. Because isn't that such an easier story to tell yourself, be empathetic, be understanding, and keep yourself in a happy space?
That's exactly it.
Because the majority of the time that person's not even thinking about you. They're so wrapped up in what's going on in their world, and we don't know what everybody else is going through.
Exactly.
There's a lot of things that people go through, and we don't know why they have a frowny face on. They may have a frowny face on because they lost somebody that they loved, or like you said, somebody's in the hospital, or they're worried about paying bills, or they're going to a job that they hate. You know, there are so many reasons that a person can be not driving the way we think they should be driving, for example. But if we take ourselves out of the moment where we're caught up and we created that story for us, and we change that to say, well, we don't really know what's going on in that car, so we just give them a little bit of grace.
Right.
That's the important
It
thing.
doesn't take anything from you.
No, it doesn't take anything.
That's the thing. Like, these things...
Actually, it takes negative thoughts from you, so
It-
if you want to be technical,
That's fair.
It
That's
takes
fair.
the negative.
That's fair.
It takes the stress. It takes the anxiety. And I can say that completely for myself because just since I had that slight shift in perspective, like I said, there's still moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm like immediately like, Emily, that's
Oh
not
my God,
nice.
you're still
you know
human.
yes. Like, you know, you're being raw and calmed down.
Right.
But like,
Right.
I don't get mad the way I used to. I don't get angry the way I used to. I don't carry it. It doesn't stick with me. It doesn't ruin my day.
So great.
Now I just check myself and I'm like, they're doing something. You need to calm the fuck down
Oh,
because you're in a rush and you don't need to be. Whatever. It's such an easier, happier life now.
I think, too, sometimes accountability looks like patting ourselves on the back for the things that we do right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the things that we do, like each other does right.
Yeah, that was a good job.
Great job,
That was a good
Anna.
job.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
For freaking real, though. Good job. Because that's some perspective change, and
Yes.
that takes willpower. That takes true...
It takes willingness to look at it from a different.
It does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does, and it's so different for everybody. I was lucky enough that the second it clicked, and it's never been any different.
I love it when you hear
But-
something and it's like, oh man,
It just sticks with
eye-opening.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes you need that. Sometimes, and we get those little moments where it's like, oh, switch flip. And and we see something very clearly and we're not stuck anymore in that old
Right.
mindset. So it's very powerful.
I love it.
Absolutely.
So anything else that we want to say or close up with here?
I think we're good.
I have an idea though.
Oh, she
Yeah.
has an idea. She's
Yes.
raising her hand.
Oh.
Yes, say
Oh,
it.
I have an
Um, so my idea is, how can we hold each other accountable? And I'm talking about the three of us here. What is something that maybe we could do to hold each other accountable? Whether that's, praising each other for the good things that we do, or what?
Definitely the good things we do. I feel like we're good at that anyway, but I mean,
Yes,
what's the harm
yes.
and more?
Yes.
All
love
the
it.
love.
I love it.
All the love. Oh, I just kicked the chair. Whoops. Anyhow.
That chair is, he's okay.
But no, we've talked about a lot of things that we want to do and put into action.
Yeah.
And I think just really, I don't know, I feel like this spring, summer is our time and just taking the action to move forward to get to those places.
So holding each other accountable in action?
Yes.
In action.
In action, okay. So when we say we're going to do something, let's hold each other accountable. Like, how's that thing going?
How's it going?
Are we doing that thing? How are we moving forward with it?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, we can totally do that. And then one last thing, just because I think that this is really beautiful. What's something that each of us can say to each other about something good we've done recently? Or if it's not each of us in our individual lives, what about what we're doing here collectively?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we've taken some real serious forward action just since the beginning of the year. I mean, we've kicked off the mindful survival group that Emily heads up.
Yay!
See, that's taking proper action. That's taking positive action. That's movement forward.
Yes.
So that right there is beautiful. That's
Keep
beautiful.
bumping.
That's beautiful for
Fine.
Emily, and that's beautiful for it as well. It's beneficial for all of us.
Yeah, so that's that. If we're going to talk about like praising that specific situation, what was it, a couple years ago when we first started all of this, I looked at you and I was like, you need to be leading stuff.
I'm such like, I don't know. I know in a way I have leader things, but I'm such not a leader.
things.
I'm a different kind of
You
leader, I guess.
are.
I
You are.
like doing things together. I like doing things myself. I hate being directly in charge, or I like delegating some, but I hate being in charge.
Which is why it's beautiful that we were working underneath of this umbrella together.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of reluctant leadership energy going on here.
So you're not a dictator, but you like collaboration.
I love collaborating. It's like one of my favorite things on earth.
I do too.
But I hate being like, you have to do this right
Right.
now and it's wrong. Like, I am not that person. I'm like, what do you want to do?
Yes.
What are you good at? What can you bring to the table? What do you want to learn?
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I feel like I want to kind of praise for us is the fact that we are, you know, creating more of that platform that we've talked about wanting to create, so that other people who have that drive, that passion, that desire to lead or to create with us and to collaborate with us can do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I'm very, very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for the growth that we have had as a community as far as our mindset shifting goes.
Yes. Yes.
Because there's been a lot of mindset shifting going on here.
Truth.
You know, I think we started off a little bit more in the witchy zone, and then we found ourselves along the way just really into this like, nah, we're all encompassing.
Yeah.
We are there for all people.
True
you
growth
know?
for anyone.
So,
Yes.
Humanity.
Yes.
In a nutshell, we're all about humanity.
Exactly.
yeah. So I really applaud us on that too.
So I really want to applaud you both too for all the work that you guys do. Like all the stuff that you guys that's behind the scenes that isn't seen, all the effort, all the research, all the meetings and commitments, and you guys are just badass. Just so you know.
Thank you.
It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of patience, and I feel like now I'm talking about you guys, but I'm going to use myself as an example because a lot of the time I don't see the stuff you guys do, but I know the effort that goes into it. Like my videos. When I make like a 30-minute clip that goes up of our podcast, people don't realize that takes me 5 to 7 hours.
Takes a while.
With I have to watch the whole thing. I have to snip the bits that I take out, and then I have to go in and edit them, and I have to add the contrast and this and that and edit the end.
It's time
It takes so many. So I know just the little bit of time that it takes me to do those things, the amount of things that you guys do for our community and for it as well. I just know how much you guys pour into it, and it is absolutely beautiful, and I just really want to recognize that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks for being on this journey with us, because
I love it. I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Goodness gracious. But there are people like you, and there are people who are, you know, diehards, I guess, who keep coming back around and everything, and who keep supporting us, that just really help us to keep moving.
Yes.
Honestly.
We're super grateful for all of them. Yes.
Heck yeah, we are. We love our It Is Well community, but we love our community as a whole.
Yes.
So anytime that we can be an advocate or reach out to our community, be present for our community, we're very grateful to be able to do that. So, anything else, yo?
I think that's it for today.
We done tooted our own horn and everything.
Love it.
All right. Until next time, guys, we can't wait to see you on this beautiful podcast. We will see you later.
Bye.
Okay, so that was our podcast ending here. But anything else we want to say to the people on TikTok? For those who have watched or who have been present, you know, we thank you for that as always. And we're really grateful for the growth that we can achieve on here, and hopefully over time we'll have more and more people join us and follow us along the way.
Yes.
So,
Awesome.
Anything else you guys want to say?
No, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
You all be well.
Oh, check out our website. Check out our website. It is wellspiritualcenter.org. We do all kinds of events in Ohio. So if you are local, especially to Southern Ohio or Central Ohio, we are present in the Pickaway and Ross County area. We do travel from like space to space. We have beautiful community groups that we come together and we learn about beautiful things together, usually spiritually oriented. But right now we also have our Mindful Survival support group, which is about teaching you practical ways of becoming basically independent. Especially with our climate and everything, that this is such a needed group, I feel like.
Here, here.
So
We're trying to figure out how to be more self-sufficient and sustainable, as well as stabilizing our communities and creating more sustainable communities with the resources that we literally have around us, which that will also be live hopefully at the last Sunday of every month. So So anybody that wants to join us, even if you can't quite literally make it to the physical place we're meeting, you can always tap in on here.
Yep. We're excited to share more about that in the future. I know that we've talked about different recipes and ideas and things that we want to bring to the table so that we can educate our community, bring awareness to the things that can help us, can support us.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
You're here.
More ideas.
Yep.
And
all the
idea queen.
All the violets are
Coming up.
blooming.
Uh-huh.
I feel like I need some wild violet tea.
Oh, there we go.
We might have to go harvesting, guys.
Time to make the tea.
Yes.
Heck yes. But just check things out. We're working all the time. We're busting tush and we are trying to collaborate with our community members and create more of a presence. We do have more things coming up in the near future. New things, different things. So please tap in, check in with us and see how we are growing and help us grow. Help us grow by being present. We appreciate any support.
Absolutely.
What were you going to say?
Oh, just it makes me think of how much we're trying to expand to. Do we want to talk about that a little bit?
We can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
So these are all just things in the works. I mean, things we literally we've discussed a little bit over time, but also some just discussed today. But like we said, we're trying to figure out how to stabilize and create stability for both ourselves and our community. So a few things that we've thought about are a local community garden. I think that's very much needed, and I think that'd be very beneficial to our local area.
Absolutely.
But then we're also, in the long term, we're trying to create a place. And I don't know how much I want to get into, but we were trying to create a place where we will have things, like a community garden, places to meet, places that we can provide resources, places that we can teach things like how to make your own soap, how to harvest local plants, and use those resources to make teas or laundry soap. What's other thing? I mean, woodwork. I mean, you name it. We're just trying to teach our community. We want to give back the skills that we feel have been lost, but also the skills that we want to teach that will be vital to all of us.
Absolutely, while helping us stay spiritually sound.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. To not only live, but to thrive as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so we want to teach about that integration
Yes.
And that unity and community.
Yeah.
I say that
That's our
all
biggest-
the time. Like, you're going to hear that phrase out of my mouth.
You're here.
1,000 times.
It's my favorite phrase.
Our logo.
It's true. It's what we do.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. We're sending love to everybody who's been on here. Thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully, if you have not checked us out before, please check us out.